Hello, gorgeous girl, and you are in for such a treat today. You know, menopause is a phase of life. It is a transition in life, which if you are a woman and you have a uterus, you absolutely will go through at some point. And it is so easy to be overlooked, to feel confused, to think that you're crazy, to not know what the heck is going on with your body. So if you've ever felt like that, or if you are at any stage, even if you're in perimenopause or you're not sure what stage of menopause you are in, you want to watch right now. This is basically almost like a menopause masterclass for you. I have brought on the amazing Dr. Heather Hirsch for our video today. You know, I met Dr. Hirsch at an event in New York that was all about menopause, and I connected with her immediately. She is a leader in the industry. She has an incredible career, and she really is an advocate for our health. And so she's gonna dive in really deep. So let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Hirsch. Heather Hirsch, MD, is the CEO of Health by Heather Hirsch, MD Collaborative, a telemedicine company servicing over 30 states and counting. She's also the CEO of Health by Heather Hirsch, LLC, a training and media company that serves to increase the education of lay women and healthcare providers. After completing advanced women's health training at Cleveland Clinic in 2014, she founded the Menopause and Midlife Clinical at the Brigham and Women's Hospital while serving as faculty at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Hirsch released her first book, Unlock Your Menopause Type, in June of 2023, while also advocating fiercely on social media for midlife women's health, providing resources and courses to her hundreds of thousands of social media followers. Dr. Hirsch is also a board-certified internist, a NAMS-certified menopause practitioner, and a fellow of the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. Truly, this is probably one of the most special videos I've ever done. I really wanted to be a resource for you, so please do get active in the comments. Let me know if you have other further questions or anything like that. Dr. Hirsch was just so gracious with her time and is happy to be a resource for you, for me, and for our community as a whole. So let's get into it. I am so excited to be with you today. We have Dr. Heather Hirsch. I basically stalked this woman, was like, I need to interview you. I want to talk with you, share you with my community. And she is, when I tell you, a wealth of knowledge and has just the most amazing experience and just really being a leader in this space. So thank you, Dr. Heather, for being here today.
I am so excited. This is my favorite topic. I think my wealth of information comes because my job kind of happens to be my hobby. Like, I just can't get enough. And I've had such a beautiful experience over the last decade treating thousands of women. And so, you know, all of the women that have come before this very day have really helped to shape like all of what I know.
And you know, your passion, it's so easy, like you can feel it. Like you're so excited about this. And let's just start there. I mean, I think we're all going to have this phase in our life. It is inevitable. It's a beautiful thing. It's not something to be ashamed of, or that it means like we shouldn't be seen, we're not desirable now, or any of that. And I just love that. What do you think right now menopause is having such a moment? Like, menopause is hot right now, not just the hot flashes, but it's really hot right now. Like, what do you think has changed that?
So I really think what changed that was probably the pandemic and just so many women being on their phones and being on social media and starting to have like places and spaces to discuss what's going on in their body. What are these mysterious things? Because I will say the change is not coming from like the medical community, right? The medical community is not like, we are going to, you know, necessarily prioritize and treat and train clinicians. They're working on it because the army of women, that's what I always call, you know, everyone who's listening, like the army of women is saying enough. Like, we have been suffering in silence, mistreated, gaslighted since the dawn of time. Like, menopause is not a new phenomenon. It's not a new phenomenon. And I do think that that really was the catalyst for people starting to open up the dialogue. Then you had 2022, 2023, you had some celebrities coming out. So Oprah talking about it, Drew Barrymore talking about it, Halle Berry talking about it, Gabrielle Union talking about it, probably more. And you had really sort of high level influencers, media, actresses talking about this kind of thing. You have businesses starting because of menopause now. You're having funding and VCs, and you're starting to get, you know, business minds, Wall Street involved, you know, in menopause, if you will. will. And now slowly we're kind of getting the medical community, but it's all of you who are listening, who've been following, who've been getting your PhDs in the middle of the night that have really made the difference.
I mean, nothing makes me happier. Like, and it makes me so sad to think of all of these women that have come before us. Like my mother, like all I knew about menopause was whisper tones. We'd call it the change and hot flashes. And that was it. And then now knowing like all of these crazy things. So now your book, you talk about the menopause types, and I love how you really break it down. So there's premature, sudden. So whether it be through surgery or doing chemo, full throttal, like you're in it, it is all happening. It's all happening. Mind altering, which I think this is a really, really important one that is finally being talked about, but prior probably very overlooked. All the mental health things that can come up, anxiety, depression, seemingly never ending, which in my community, I have people that say like, I've been going through this for a decade, like what's going on? And then silent. So as a person that is postmenopausal, I am, I would say I identify as I was silent and mind altering, where there was like some weird stuff going on where I was like, I feel anxious, I feel blah. That was the big thing for me. And I have a great life, but I felt blah. So can we talk a little bit about how to identify this? And obviously, number one, everyone should get your book because it's fantastic.
Thank you so much. I love my book. Not only and I'm like a very harsh critic. I can throw like an Instagram reel, but I'm like, oh, my hair, oh, this or that. But what I really love about it was like, I always kind of, when I went to write a book, my agent was like, well, what are you going to write that's new? Like, what is new here, sister? And, I was like, well, I see these different like phenotypes and everyone needs to be treated individually. And while I couldn't come up with a plan for, 50 million people, like there were these distinct different types. And I think that the way you would treat yours would be totally different than like your sister or your best friend or your mother. And we say one size does not fit all so much, but it is so, so, so important. And I hope one of the reasons my patients love to see me is I take a very individualized approach with every single person. And the fact that we call our hormones, our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, our sex hormones, is the biggest disservice on the planet because they affect our brains, our eyesight, our hair, our hearing, our heart, our GI system, our vaginal pelvic floor health from head to toe. And that has just been so overlooked and oversimplified for decades. Like I believe, that the lecture on menopause in medical school is, hey guys, menopause is when a woman's periods ends. Any questions?
Good luck.
And there's just so much going on. And the impact on the brain is significant and so much more research really is being done and still needs to be done. And I think the mental health aspects are astronomically disproportionate to what people think of in the movies about midlife, perimenopause, and menopause. In our prefrontal cortex, estrogen controls our processing speed, our recall, our ability to make quick decisions. In the middle of our brain, our emotions, our whether we're happy or we're anxious. And in the back of our brain is actually the place that controls our temperature. It's in the brain. It's all in the brain, right? So that's where you might get like hot flashes or dizziness or, night sweats, etc. So much is going on up here and then the rest of the body. And that, sort of brings out the silent type, which is if you are one of the 10% of lucky women with no symptoms, you might now be learning, what about my heart and what about my bones and all of these things. And of course, you've got your classic symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, and dryness. But it's just so much more comprehensive than we've ever trained doctors. And then as women, we've ever been taught.
I just want to hop in the video really quick to just say thank you so much for being here today. I would love it if you consider subscribing. It's totally free to do so, and it really helps YouTube know that you want to learn more about content like this and that you like my channel. Give this video a big thumbs up and click on the bell so you always know when I have a new video that goes live.
I mean, it's wild to me. It's kind of not dissimilar to nutrition, right? I think research is that most doctors have spent 24 hours, right, in residency on nutrition. So no wonder people are like, confused. They don't know, just eat less and move more. It's like, it doesn't always work that way. But the statistic of 7% felt adequately prepared. As you stated in your book, 7% of residents felt adequately prepared to help work with people, with women in menopause, is just wild to me.
Wow.
It makes me really, it really lights this fire of this like advocate, in me, of just like, I get angry, I feel like it's just sort of like that, like, this train gets to stop here, of us not
Sure.
getting the care that we need, because I think a lot of us can agree, if this was men going through this, this would be a very different situation. What do you think that HRT medications for so many are not covered by insurance?
Yeah, it's so so many good points you said. I want to pick up on, HRT, but you are absolutely right. The fact that this is something that only happens to women, we don't need to totally go there, but it's not lost. It shouldn't be lost on us. And it's really, really important. It wasn't till like 1992 that women were included in clinical trials. Like, we have really been neglected because we're too complex for far too long. Now, when it comes to HRT, it can get very, very complicated. Like, you can go down a rabbit hole. I will have, just the most amazing and brilliant women come to see me, and they're like, I feel like I just went in a giant circle after like a whole day of doing research. I thought I figured it out, and then I came right back to the beginning. But there's a couple different kinds and types. And the way to kind of break this tree down is there's FDA approved, and then there is compounded and unregulated. And what we kind of recommend, or I usually almost 95% of the time, is do FDA approved hormone therapy. But in that group of FDA approved hormone therapy is bioidenticals.
Mhm.
So the big question might even be, what the heck is a bioidentical?
That was one of my questions.
Yes, it's a great time to answer it. So bioidentical, I was embarrassed to learn this, but it is a marketing term. It really means nothing. It is a marketing term. But anytime you hear the word bioidentical, or a doctor or a naturopath talking about bioidentical estrogen, replace it with the word estradiol. Replace it with the word estradiol. And estradiol can either be FDA approved, or it could be compounded. And that means estradiol is a plant-based estrogen. Now, you can't eat enough plants pharmaceutically to get, enough estrogen. You really have to have it made in a lab, whether it's commercially available or it's compounded. Now, there's three big types of estrogens. The one that is the most bioavailable and the one that actually has the efficacy in treating your symptoms is estradiol. And there's also esterol and estrone. Estrol and estrone are extraordinarily weakly potent, and they are so weak that they're over the counter. So when you're looking at hormone therapy, estradiol, bioidentical estradiol, you can get it FDA approved, either in a pill, in a patch, in a spray, in a gel, or you can get it compounded, which is usually in some kind of cream or application. Now, back to HRT. When you're thinking about progesterone, which is also helpful to take for some symptoms, but also if you're taking estrogen and you're postmenopausal and you have a uterus, then you need a progesterone. And the bioidentical version of that is called prometrium, or micronized natural progesterone, or even just progesterone. Different progestins that are synthetic or made in a lab might have names like norethindrone or agestin or Provera or medroxyprogesterone acetate. The bioidentical prometrium micronized natural progesterone is extraordinarily safe. And again, you can either get that FDA approved only in a pill form, or you can get it compounded sometimes in a pill form and sometimes as a cream. The problem with the cream, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, is it's such a big molecule, it doesn't absorb well through the skin. And so that's a really important point to highlight, because it's not safe. And the unregulated HRT has varying degrees of differences between them. They're not as well studied. They're not safer than FDA-approved estradiol and prometrium. And then there's also injections or pellet injections, which are somewhat worrisome to me. I know that may be shocking for people who are new to this, but again, it's because it's an unregulated medication that lasts for a particularly long time, usually 3 months, that can really give you levels that are very, very difficult to control. I have some patients of mine who after 24 to 48 hours, like want their levels changed. So I, worry about people who cannot change their levels for a good 90 days. And so that's kind of the lay of the land. And within those, pellets and compounded tend to be the most expensive. FDA approved actually does tend to be the cheapest. I was going to say the most cost effective, but within them, there's differences in terms of like brands. There's, some differences in terms of what's the most convenient if something is combined. So, there's a lot of options, but the TLDR is, 90% of my patients are on FDA approved bioidenticals with some progestins mixed in there, because sometimes prometrium is causes some side effects. Sometimes estradiol doesn't work as well as synthetic estrogens. Long story there. And within that component, there's some that are more expensive and some that are less expensive.
Yeah. I just think it's just so fascinating. Like all of this conversation, it just fires me up so much. Now, I have a question for you about, I think it can be really polarizing. At least I see in my comments, it can be very polarizing. Like you should never take HRT. And I know that a lot of people lovingly, that's probably based on older information from older studies that were like 20, 25, even 30 years ago, which, as we get older, those years, I'm like, was that really 30 years ago? But it was. So who, in your opinion, absolutely would not be a candidate for HRT?
Well, you're by the
Trick
textbook. I'll
question.
tell you truthfully, this is it's becoming so polarizing. And, sometimes I even see women come to me that say like, I feel like I have to, or I'm going to miss the boat. Like I'm starting to see it from all ends. One thing I will say before sort of jumping into like, who's not a good candidate is like, I truly, truly think that all women deserve a trial of HRT, almost even before you make a judgment decision, whether you think you should or you think you shouldn't. If you notice or if you are aware enough to know there's probably a bias that's leading you to one thing or the other, right? Oh, you shouldn't. And there's probably a deep-seated bias. You've been told it's bad or you've been told it's unnatural. There's nothing more natural than replacing your hormones that you're supposed to be making. Our ovaries have just not they have just not evolved fast enough, essentially, if you ask me. But I do think all women deserve a trial. What I kind of call a trial is like basically trying it on for like, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, because to be able to see how differently your body responds, a lot of people suffer through menopause. And not only is there no metal, it's actually going to derail your health, your longevity. Yes, so much more. In fact, of all the data that's really hidden is the fact that women who have persistent hot flashes, die earlier, have more heart disease. Women who take HRT live longer, have less heart disease, die less from all causes, die less from all cancers, have better bones, better sex lives, work longer, therefore happier, better marriages, better finances, better friends, better sleep. And so that's been hidden from us, is that there's actually dangers to sticking it out and suffering through it. So I recorded a podcast like a month or two ago that said there isn't a woman on the planet I wouldn't treat with HRT. And I totally stand behind that because I think it has to do so much with patient autonomy. And these are hormones that your body's been making for decades, despite whatever has happened to you. Now, there's the textbook, and the textbook says a little differently. And if you kind of fall in that textbook of I shouldn't take HRT, there are still clinicians who would love to have a conversation with you, myself included, the collaborative, my clinicians that work in my telemedicine practice. So who should not? I know, do you love how you asked me a question, Tracy?
No, but I love this
it takes me 5 minutes to get to the answer. A history of breast cancer or active breast cancer, that is, still in textbook. There is lots of data. And I know that the biggest risk about HRT is still breast cancer. There is tremendous, a plethora of data showing that those bioidentical hormones, estradiol and prometrium, do not increase the risk of cancer. So you are not decreasing your risk by not taking HRT. They don't increase the risk of cancer, and that likely they are not going to contribute to a recurrence for women who've had breast cancer. That's even taking it a step farther. But yes, I have breast cancer survivors that I see and treat, but that's in the textbook. A history of a clot that's unprovoked in your leg or in your lungs, a history of a stroke, a history of liver disease and severe liver disease, end-stage liver disease, cirrhosis, essentially. Heart attacks used to be on that list, but actually that has been taken away, because actually we know estrogen is actually very cardioprotective, but that's kind of the textbook of like, who should not. But
So what they should do is contact you and contact the collaborative and have an informed conversation. I mean, truly, I just think it's so heartbreaking really to see. Number one, I'd love to just, touch on this a little bit more. There is no medal of honor. I will say, I'm very transparent. As someone who is a fitness and a wellness professional for over 25 years myself, when I first started taking HRT, I'm not going to lie, there was a part of me that felt like, am I cheating? Because I'm like, I do all the things. I work out, I work on my mental health, I eat healthy food, I do all the things. Am I somehow cheating? There was really, I remember, speaking to my doctor about this, I said, is this okay? Like, I kind of feel weird about it. And, I think it's so important, like lean in, because I'm assuming most of the women that are here on my channel are eating healthy food or working out, or at least striving to, the best that we can in this country, right? Like doing the most that we can. And sometimes we need more, we need more. And as someone that's been on the other side of it, let me tell you, the difference in how I feel is marked, and here's the other thing, with perimenopause, I didn't know I was in it. I did 5 cycles of IVF, had a baby. So I had hormone craziness from IVF, having a child, and perimenopause. So it was like this storm of like, I don't know what's going on. And so about 6 months after I had my baby, I was like, listen, this doesn't feel like post-baby. This feels like something so much larger. So let's talk a little bit about some of the kind of unrecognized symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, because basically, in my opinion, any woman that I talk to, I'm like, sounds to me like you're totally in perimenopause. But let's talk about something like just the not known. We all know like hot flashes, even moods. I feel like people are starting to understand that a little bit more. What are some of the ones that people just don't think about, that it's like,
yes. So there's a lot. I mean, I can kind of think from head to toe, and it's so funny because I always say, if you think that it all kind of started around the same times as like periods changed, or you might be a woman that doesn't get periods, you got an IUD, or you've had a hysterectomy, like you've noticed some sort of cyclic pattern and these new symptoms all coming at once, like start journaling and tracking them. And honestly, more likely than not, it is related to perimenopause. There's just so much that we don't know. But some of the like lesser known ones is like joint aches and pains. Joint aches and pains actually.
I had that so bad, so bad. I thought I had rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes.
My hands, I would wake up and just be like, why are my fingers on fire? I was like, no, this is not my path. And then of course, learning, I was like, that was fully like menopause symptoms, like crazy.
Absolutely. And because we immediately think joint aches and pains when we think arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. We're working out too hard. Like, you don't think menopause, right? Estrogen deficiency. But like, I cannot tell you how many patients their joint aches and pains improve. And in fact, this is on a standardized questionnaire called the Menopause Rating Survey, or MRS. And we have plenty of proof that estrogen actually helps joint aches and pains because there's receptors in your joints, actually. So joint aches and pains is like an obvious one that's uncommonly associated with hormone deficiency. Of course, mood, as you mentioned already, but there are women that I see that they say, yeah, I have some hot flashes, and like, yeah, I have some dryness, but like, I no longer feel like myself. I had a nun come to me, say she started swearing. She was so irritable. And she was like, this is not me. Sometimes it's anxiety that's wildly out of control. Sometimes it's depression or that feeling of blah that you mentioned before. Like you get to, 47, 52, and you're like, I've built this beautiful life, this beautiful house, this beautiful career. So like, why am I not happy? That could also be changes in menopause. Some funny ones are like itchy ears. I hear that all the time. Dry skin, change in your eyesight, change in your hair, of course. A lot of us just think, or we're told we're just getting older. But really what's happening, what's kind of almost accelerating the aging process is us losing our estrogen. And, you make such a good point that there is this myth that if you're healthy and you eat well and you sleep well and you track your macros and your aura, like you're going to sail through menopause. No, there is a physiologic process and you can't yoga your way out of it. You can't track your way out of it. You are losing estrogen, which is an major hormone that I just said affects us from head to toe. Our ovaries have not evolved fast enough. And therefore, it's really, it's so easy to think that like, I should have been able to handle this. I should have seen this coming. I'm, type A, I'm perfect in every single way. I can sail through this. This is a physiologic process, and those little receptors don't care, how well you're meditating.
And
Although
your food is.
they do.
How great you've been working out.
Right. It helps. It is the backbone of our habits. So all of that, all the lifestyle is fantastic. You can't take a pill for that. But so many of my patients really do struggle with this. And then once you try it on and you're like, well, wait, this little patch just brought me back to life. And now I can meditate better and exercise better and be a better mom and It's amazing.
I mean, listen to that again. Like I just think it's so important because there should be no shame. There should be no self-blaming, no sheepishness about this at all.
Sheepishness is a hard one.
That's what I want to say. I love, listen, I know that you're a mom of 3 yourself, and I'm a mom of 1. My daughter is 4.5 going on 14, but different conversation. I just really, one of the things that just makes me so happy right now is that we're going to be able to have these conversations with our daughters, with our nieces, with our, having conversations with your friends and being open about this. I think this is truly one of the most important things. And, one of my missions is for women to know that you are not alone. You are not alone. This is natural. This is normal. And, as Heather was saying, there's no medal for suffering. You don't need to. And I just think it's so, I had those thoughts too. I was like, am I just starting to get old? Like, this is not my mindset, but maybe this is part of it. Like overuse. I used to be a dancer. All right, I'm going to have joint pain. But then being on the other side of it, I'm like, thank goodness. Thank goodness,
Well,
Go ahead.
It's so awesome that you're sharing your journey because, it's easy to look on social media and think like everyone's got it together and, everyone's doing all the right things, but, it's just, we need like, big influencers. We need, people who are in different, allied health professions like you. It's so wonderful that you feel safe talking about it. I can't tell you enough how much of an impact you're making because as a clinician, yes, I certainly am, and I certainly can, but it is so important that so many women of all places and shapes and industries talk about it, not just me.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, what your race, age, I guess.
Zip code.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're going to be in this period of your life. It is natural, and it's finally getting some of the respect that it deserves. And I hope it just gets more and more and more. I want to talk a little bit about the socio-demographic variables. Because when I actually met you in New York, that was one of the things that really stood out to me was hearing that African-American women are often more affected by menopause. Can you talk a little bit about that, why that is, and also, is there anything we can do to improve that?
This is, this statement is so huge. It is, it can't, I don't even have the right words to say how much of a problem it really is. There is a statistic that the higher your education level, the more likely you are to be on HRT. And that doesn't mean that it's because you're smarter. It probably means access.
Mhm.
And access, of course, is a huge thing. And one of the things that, we might have time to talk about, but I've been working on using AI and chat features to improve access because I understand that I'm not so accessible. That's also only because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do anything. But I have been working and thinking about how can we make menopause care accessible, and how can I contribute to research? How can I contribute back to my community for all the wonderful things that I'm doing? So why certain populations, there's probably a couple of reasons. There may be a genetic component involved, because ovarian tissue is rapidly dividing cells, and they sort of have a time limit at which they are sort of set to expire or go into menopause. And there may be a genetic component to that, meaning that some races may have a predisposition to earlier menopause than others. And why that's important is the later your menopause is, for those of you who are like waiting for the clock to stop, the longer you tend to live. We know that certain stressors like smoking, drug use, alcohol use can make menopause earlier. And then again, if you think about that, later menopause, longer life, as you start to go down menopause, that may correlate with your longevity, and we don't know about, for example, epigenetics or stressful environments or stressful situations, what kind of stress that puts on your ovarian tissue, right? So there's another one. African-American women are also much more likely to have hysterectomies. That's when you take out the uterus for fibroids or heavy bleeding. Now, that doesn't put you into menopause, but if the surgeon takes out your ovaries while you're there, that can put you into surgical menopause, which actually has a much higher rate of long-term chronic health conditions if not treated with HRT. So you might have more African-American women or women of lower socioeconomic status having their ovaries removed too early and then not being treated with HRT. There could be discrepancies, there could be biases among clinicians. Of course, certain communities don't want to sometimes talk about what's going on with them, or there's mistrust of the medical community, all completely valid. Of course, the education among physicians is very, very, very abysmal. And therefore, it can take a lot of resources and time to get to a doctor who knows how to prescribe HRT, which is really why I've wanted to get my AI technology out
Let's
there.
talk about your AI, because I think that I'm so excited about this, and I think it's just such an amazing thing that you're creating and having as a resource for all people, and I think that that's amazing. So we talk.
Because I don't want this information to just be for the few or help to be just for the few. That actually defeats the purpose of making this globe, this world, a wonderful, beautiful, harmonious place with diverse voices. And so those are some of the reasons why there's discrepancies. And of course, there's a global problem because as we've mentioned, which is, obvious, but 1.2 billion women will go through menopause in the next 2 to 3 years. And you can imagine there is places where there is very little access to healthcare. And if so, it's usually life-threatening issues, which I think menopause is. But regardless, so in 2023, my co-founder and I created a company called RealDoc AI. And basically, what we did is we took all of my brain and intellectual property, all of my content, and actually computed it into sort of a cloud computing service and applied large language learning models, or LLMs, to this information to be able to almost have like a chat with you. I know it sounds kind of super futuristic.
I love it.
Think about the like Expedia chatbot. That's very like 2012, like it only knows yes or no things, but you can kind of ask this chat AI really anything that you want. Hey, Dr. Hirsch, should I take progesterone nightly or should I take it 12 days of the month? I'm hearing, that Tracy does it this way, but Angie Hot and Flashy does it that way, like what's the right way to do it? And she'll kind of ask you a couple of questions and sort of walk you through the answer. And then what we would like to do with this technology is also then to be able to start creating visits out of it. Very, very cost effective, where you could have an entire conversation as long as you want. It will talk back and forth with you, understand your medical history, and then potentially, what I envision, although we can almost already do it, is come up with a treatment plan recommendations, and then we just have a doctor sign off on those.
So then based on that, let's say someone goes through the chat and then they get a list of recommendations, because this is where in my comments where I'm seeing women really struggling, saying, I've talked to 4 doctors. Doctor said, no, you can't start HRT because you're not already in menopause. Not true. You can't, whatever. So they could go in with this list of resources to a doctor that is informed and say, this is what's going on.
Exactly, exactly. Or even one of our doctors can sign them, hopefully, for you. And so you can get your visit in real time. Like, you can just talk to it, whenever you're ready, you're just doing the dishes. You're like, that's it. Today's the day. And we'd have a whole plan for you. And it's so exciting. It's so
And how many in the collective? Dr. Hirsch has the collective, how many states are you in now?
So the telemedicine practice, where you see a human and not the AI agent, and of course we're still working on that, is open in 30 states, and it's the Health by Heather Hirsch MD collaborative. So I started my I founded the menopause clinic at Harvard at Brigham and Women's in 2020, built that through a pandemic, loved it so much. But then really kind of hit this peak where I really wanted to do menopause my own way. I had this idea about giving you courses and information and just making everything so menopause and perimenopause seamless and centric for you. So I grew that in 2023 and then just hired 12 more clinicians to work with me in 2024. So now we're in 30 states. And we're going to be in all 50 states. And, a couple really fun things is that as part of being a patient, we have this beautiful community. And the community aspect is something that I also think is just so nice, because you may have a question after your doctor's visit, but you may just want to ask your friends. You may just want to ask someone else, like, hey, where do you guys put the gel? Heather told me up on this thigh, but like, does it do their butt? Like, does it work for you? And so we also have this really cool community where patients all can talk, and we do all these bi-monthly events and sort of things about like finances and, dentistry and what that means in menopause. And, I have a whole course that comes along with it. It's just been a beautiful thing. We'd love to see you as a patient. We do hour-long visits. It's wonderful if that's something that would work for you.
We'll leave, of course, everything will be down below in the description box so everyone can dive in. So I love this. I just think it's, again, your passion and your fire around this is just palpable. And it's just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's talk about lifestyle a little bit, because, I do know, obviously, our lifestyle choices can help with those symptoms, right? So, in your opinion, what are the best things that women can do to help support themselves through this transition?
Ooh, I love this question. Quick plug for my book, because I kind of go through based on types. And, you might be, again, I have a patient who is 24. She had menopause because of an autoimmune condition. I have patients with silent, and so it's so different. But, I think the big pillars, we think about sleep. Sleep is so, so, so vital and so important, and really focusing on your sleep hygiene. So learning how to fall asleep, how to get yourself nice and sleepy.
Really fall asleep without me snuggling her.
Right. The sleep quality, making sure, you've got like a dark, cold room, you're kind of removing any disruptions, removing the TV. I know it's hard, but the TV.
I have one in my room. My husband, he's like, we have an outlet right there. And I'm like,
no, the TV is actually like, especially like amongst like psychiatrists, psychologists, neuroscientists, like it's bad for sleep.
Yes.
You want your bed to be for sleep and sex only. So if you're watching movies in there, or if you're watching TV or comedy or drama, like your bed becomes a place where your brain is just active. You want to see your bed and like a Pavlovian's dog, just sleep. Yeah. So you want to avoid your bed for anything else besides for sleeping and sex. So sleep, movement, movement is so vital, of course, for your bones. probably not probably, but lifting weights, because that's something, especially if you know, as our generation grew up in the 80s and 90s, we were like cardio, cardio, cardio. I love cardio, don't get me wrong. But you know, adding weights for the bones, for the muscles, for your metabolism, for your longevity, like your muscle is medicine. So movement, I think finding things to slow down. So meditating, journaling, I cannot tell you how much I love both of those things. I think trying and learning something new is a really great skill. It can prevent Alzheimer's. So let's say for me, I am like dying to learn golf. I don't know why. It's like my mission. I'm like, I just want to get out there and learn how to whack the ball. It's like skills that I don't have, but you're learning something new that's like outside in nature with your friends or something social. Those things are all really, really great.
I love that. I take Italian classes, and every single week it's like, I'm like, oh, I'm so busy. I don't have time for this class. And every single week I'm like, "Oh, I'm so glad I went to that class," because I'm using a different part of my
For your
brain.
brain.
You know, it's not like the area of like, health, nutrition, fitness. Like I could talk about that all day long. I don't even have to think about it anymore. But
Right.
like, wait, what? Like I can't,
I
so
really want to learn the piano. I played the piano for like 2 seconds. When I was in third grade, I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera, made my mom like buy me a piano, do the thing. And after I learned how to play Phantom of the Opera, that was it. Haven't been back to the piano. And like, I'm dying to, you know, learn a new instrument, learn a new language, travel to a new city. It can be fun, you know, but trying something new is so good for those neurons.
I have a phrase that I say on my channel a lot, is like drop the curmudgeon attitude. Like we don't know everything,
No.
and it's so obvious. Like you're going to look better. Your skin's going to look better. You're going to look younger if you're happier. Like a smile on your face takes 10 years off. Right. And so I love that that is one of your lifestyle, because I talk about that all the time. Like try new things, take a dance class, do something. Yes. Like absolutely. Just one quick thing with resistance training. So I'm a huge Pilates fan on the reformer. Now I know Pilates on the mat, you're using body weight. Obviously, there's some resistance in that, but the Pilates reformer, so many people are like, no, you have to lift heavy. Now I know we're, I think, relatively around the same height. I'm 5'1.5". I feel like you might be a little taller than me. And so would you like resistance training? It doesn't have to necessarily mean like lifting heavy in the, okay. Can you?
No, you know, honestly, I think this is another one of those things where like you will find the people that tell you have to, and you gotta listen to your body. You gotta listen to your body. You know, I feel like I inflame pretty easily, and like I did CrossFit for a couple years and I enjoyed it, but I don't think I would go back to it. I love Pilates. I mean, that's just hard. You know, so good for your core, so good for your back, so good for those hip flexors, all those muscles that you need in activities of daily living, right? Picking up things, picking up grandkids as we get older. Health is wealth. We talk about generational wealth, but we have to think about generational health. And that is doing the things now for your body that are going to keep you like, you know, wonderful and active and healthy into your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And so I have no sort of like, I mean, I leave that up to the individuals and the people to decide what's best for themselves. But I do think as we get older, a lot of us probably have a tendency to inflame a lot more, and that raises our cortisol and our stress. So I think like high intensity interval training, lots of CrossFit, starving your body, not good for you as you get older. And in fact, it's actually going to cause probably weight gain. Not that I am the expert in this. I'm really not. I always kind of say I'm just the doctor. You know, I'm not a fitness instructor, a nutritionist, a kinesiologist, but I can see it. I can feel it in myself. One of my favorite things, honestly, I like to do these days is walk. I know, isn't that
No,
embarrassing?
same. Me too.
I
Mental
love
health,
it. I
like
love it
getting
so much.
outside, being in nature, it is so helpful. One of the things I always say, and I love this, thank you for sharing that, is that, and I believe from what you've said, like I love that you said making shared decisions, with your patients, putting the onus on you. Like we don't know all the answers. You have to try things. And I think like I always say, every body is different. So what works for me might not work for you. Of course there can be, okay, try this on for size. Like I always tell women, okay, if you're going to do workouts, actually do a little bit less, do 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes, like a Tabata workout. The benefits actually pay off so much more in those first 30 minutes than doing like a 90-minute, so I think it's just really important to remember we have to test and try things out for for our own body and see what really works. Because the stuff I used to do in my 20s is not going to work for me now at almost 50 years old. Like, it's just not.
It's just not. Agree, 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 1,000,000%.
You are the best. Thank you so, so much for being here. Dr. Heather, you are incredible. Everybody check out The Collective. All of her information will be down below. Follow her on Instagram too. I think her Instagram is fantastic. She's on every single day, I think, and great content, answers a lot of questions, and you just have such an incredible energy about you. Quick question, selfish question. You still do a couple days in New York City?
I do. I actually do. I'm a crazy lady. Yes, I'm in New York City, so I do see patients in person 2 days a month, usually the last Thursday and the last Friday of the month, and that's on my website too. And if you're local or if you're not in one of the states, or if you just also still want take a trip and come to see me as part of your trip. You can be in any country, you can come and see me, and that's kind of why I kept that. I just knew that there's something for everybody, right? You want to see me in person, telemedicine, the AI, like I'm trying to tackle this from all angles and spaces so that everyone can get the help they need, like where they are.
I mean, the work that you're doing and what you are making accessible to all, I just truly, it's game and life changing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So leave us comments. Let us know what other questions you have. Maybe we can get Dr. Hirsch to come back. I would love to have you again. I think you're fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Bye.